everyone, my name is Tori Edwards and you are tuning into Through Our Lenses. Here is where real people come together to share their intimate experiences from the soul. Today's discussion is centered around self-identity and being Black in America. And I brought along my good girlfriend of 15 plus years to join in on the discussion. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Alicia Davis. All right, so Alicia, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself so we won't dive right in.
Okay, I am 30 years old. Gosh, I'm saying that out loud. Originally from Anaheim Hills, California. Went to high school here in League City, which is obviously where you and I met.
Yes.
Been hanging tough ever since. A proud Southern University Agricultural and Mechanical College graduate.
Oh, look how she said that with conviction. I like that, girl.
You gotta sprinkle the razzle dazzle on it. But definitely one of the best experiences of my life, some of the best years of my life. So definitely proud to be a Jaguar. I'm currently a senior trainer in the telecommunications industry, and I teach people how to do their jobs. I'm a proud auntie, love my nephew to death, and that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. And she's also like my therapist, my motivational coach, like she's all that. Like when I say we met in high school, and we just clicked ever since. And so yeah, so that's kind of our little introduction.
Yeah. I'm also certified to bring the Thanksgiving and Christmas mac and cheese. So that tells you.
Oh yeah, she can throw down in the kitchen.
Doing.
Like for my 30th birthday, like when I tell you, like I like to eat. I love soul food. She did it up. Like I walked in the house, I like my mac and cheese. The mac and cheese was laid out. The greens were laid out. The chicken was laid out. It was good. She did real good. All right, so I actually brought Alicia along because we had some discussion kind of off air. Just kind of give it a little backstory is one of my friends from college had posted his story about growing up in a predominantly white community, going to a white school, off into a white college, and struggling to find his identity being the only Black person amongst a lot of white people. And so it actually kind of made me think about my own experience. Alicia and I feel like we were so much on the same path, and then once we went off to college, I feel like you got a different experience of life. That experience, honestly, I think that's why you were so grounded in who you are as a woman, and as a Black woman at that. And I feel like you've learned some things about yourself during your collegiate experience that I am trying to figure out now in my 30s. So that's kind of where I wanted to kind of start. Okay. So like Alicia and I said, we went to high school together, and our high school was predominantly white.
But let's make that part very clear.
Okay.
Because when we graduated, there was almost 800 kids in our graduating class, just seniors. Yeah. And the Black people didn't make up a single percent.
Was it that small?
We did not make up a single percent.
Wow.
That is how off balance our world was.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. I just wanted to put that in perspective.
But that's good that you did, because I remember, I feel like I didn't really notice the differences, because my family's predominantly very mixed. I have aunts and from different races, so I guess I didn't really see it for what it was until I got older. And I remember my mom said to me, actually recently, I was looking at some old pictures from high school, and she said, I had to come to grasp that you didn't have a whole lot of Black friends. And she says that, I don't know if you remember, but you had a birthday party at the house, and I'm seeing all your friends come in. I think it's probably actually before you and I became super close. And she said, you were the only black person at your own birthday party. And she was like, my poor baby, like she didn't, like outside of my sister, I was the only black person at our party. You know, and I think for me, my mom just taught us to love people for who they are. And although you see race, you really don't see it, if that makes any sense. Like you don't judge people for what color they are. It's like you focus on people based off of their character and who they are at the core, and then make a decision if you want to be friends with them or not. But when I started to, like, after I read Kevin's post, it made me start to think about high school. And there was an incident where I was in cheerleading. I was the head cheerleader my freshman year. The head cheerleader and the only black girl on the team. The only black girl. And there was an instance where we were at practice and we were stunting. And if anybody knows me, I'm very vibrant. I'm very loud. I use my hands a lot. And finally, I guess I just got on one of the white girl's nerves. And she was just like, you're always so loud. I mean, just so daggone loud. And it caught me off guard. And I just got quiet. But honestly, I think that was the first time where I felt like being who I am, I needed to minimize that. Because
you felt like you had to make yourself smaller to fit into this space.
Yes. And, you know, there was no other black girl, you know? So, and I think there's certain stereotypes that go along with black women. Like, we're sassy, we're loud, we're this, we're that.
We're aggressive, all that. Yeah.
Yes. And so I think for me, I was like, whoa, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be what white people think black people are like.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was the first time where I started to really kind of...
you were just more conscious, maybe?
Probably more conscious of how I was seen when it came to my friends and counterparts. And almost in a way kind of like suppress my blackness, if that makes any sense. But that's just kind of my story. But what about, I mean, how was it for you being at Creek?
Well, I can't start at Creek. Because my story is... Anyway. So I grew up in Anaheim Hills, California, which, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is right smack dab in the middle of Orange County. So I literally grew up in the whitest part of California. So I grew up in an all-white neighborhood, went to an all-white school. Even simple things like going to the beauty supply store. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We had to drive into LA.
Just to go
to pick up some Blue Magic grease. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing in my world reflected who I was. And I remember being very conscious and very aware of my blackness at all times. And from a very young age. I got called a nigger the first time at 5 years old.
Wow.
And it was my next door neighbor's kid, and we would play together. And it didn't dawn on me until later that she learned that from him.
Yeah.
And these are our next door neighbors.
And I say that racism, and people don't believe me, racism is taught. Nobody is born in this world just hating other people.
I agree.
That is passed down. That is taught. It is taught.
It's shaped and it's molded. And
absolutely.
I think the way that people are portrayed in media, regardless of what media outlet that may be, it may be TV, it may be movies, it may be social media, it may be magazine ads, you know, all of these things play a very heavy factor in how different groups of people
are perceived.
Exactly. So growing up there, I never felt accepted. I never felt enough. I noticed I was treated different by my teachers even, you know, from the other kids. Somebody could be talking all the way across the room and they wouldn't even take the time to pick their head up to assess the situation. It would just be, Alicia, stop talking. You know, Alicia, da-da-da-da. Or somebody could do something to me and it was automatically assumed that I was the aggressor, or that I had instigated the situation somehow. All of these different things. So it was just really tough on a very, very basic level. All of the other young girls have, little prepubescent boyfriends, and they're getting folded up notes and all that kind of stuff. And I never got that, because by their standards, I was unattractive. And to be honest, I wasn't attracted to them either. But it's like you still want to have that. Absolutely. You want to participate in whatever's going on around you. My size didn't make it any
I thought you were going to mention that in high school, because I remember you were saying something, Alicia, I'm 5'2". Alicia, you're 5. Oh, I got this wrong the last time. 5'9".
I'm 5'11".
5'11". And being a tall woman, it can be intimidating. And I think adding black on top of that, it's a lot. It was a
huge intimidation factor. I remember being in early elementary school. It may have been like 4th grade, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this group of girls. They were like the popular girls of 4th grade.
Yeah.
And they never wanted anything to do with me any other time. But this one day we're at recess, and they all like run up to me, and they're like, Alicia, we need you. So I don't know what it is, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like bucked up, like, oh, I'm finna hang with the popular girl. And they wanted me to fight a girl. And that was the only value and worth that they had assessed to me was, oh, she can fight somebody. And
which ties back to black people are quote unquote aggressive.
Exactly.
We're the instigators.
And I had never fought anybody. I was very quiet. I was to myself.
Yeah.
So anyways, that whole situation definitely shaped just a lot of my thought processes. I was very insecure. I was very overly conscious of myself. So then coming to high school, there was, 12 of us?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of us.
In our class. And believe it or not, that was a lot for me.
Oh, really?
I was like, I remember coming home and telling my sister, like, yo, there's so many black people at my school. And there wasn't, but in retrospect to where I had come from, that 12 meant everything to me.
Yeah.
And I just remember wanting to be accepted so bad and wanting to fit in so bad by my people,
I will say, like, the acceptance piece is what I struggled with a lot in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like the black girls who were really popular, they played sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that to hang on to, because I was a cheerleader in high school and I ran track. But outside of that, it was kind of like I was like the tag along,
mm-hmm.
And then I had my cheerleading friends, and I will say it's kind of where I learned my different tastes of music and dress. But I still feel like I struggled with it because, like, when we're from Alabama, a small town, Tuscaloosa, you've been home with me before. Mm-hmm. And so our family is so big that when you go back home, it's like your family are your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surrounded by black people, and now I've been submerged in these white neighborhoods, this white school when I moved to Texas. And so I remember going back home for Thanksgiving, and my uncle was like, yeah, Tori, I can tell you don't have a lot of black friends.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it's kind of like the running joke for years, and we even talked about this off camera, where my family just, you're gonna marry a white man. Your type is a white man.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they said it jokingly, but honestly, I took it as a negative.
It nicks your spirit.
It does. Like, why can't I be attracted to a black man?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, the way that you dress and the way that you talk. And even kind of as I got older, I feel like when I went back home, I almost kind of felt like I didn't fit in anymore with my own people. But I think I was just going through this phase of trying to figure out where I fit in.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the girls from the cheerleading school, I was like, when you talk to... I had a good friend, Angie, at the time, and I was talking with Angie one day, and she goes, I can tell when you talk to her, you talk different than when you talk with us. And I didn't realize that I was switching it off and on.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody else noticed that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think that was just because I didn't feel comfortable with just being, you know, when you go with your family and people that you're comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
you're a little more relaxed, probably there's a little twang, a little slang in there, here and there, but you're just being comfortable.
And I think that's something that all people of color have experienced, and that they practice, and it's that living in duality.
Yes.
Right? Because there are things that are very natural to us culturally that we know would not be accepted
Mm-hmm.
or looked at positively otherwise, or just misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Something as simple as, you know, when we get together and we laughing and we talking, I don't know why, but black people like to separate.
Mm-hmm.
When something's funny, we run away from each other. Why is that? I don't know. But that's definitely, you know, a reality of the culture. I'm really drawn to what you said as far as, oh, you're gonna marry, you know, a white man.
Yeah.
And it puts you in this middle place. And it's almost like you're living in this land of ambiguity because you're not white.
Yeah.
And you'll never be, so you're only accepted in this community to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you're not black enough. So you're just in this space, just kind of hanging out, like, and it's not your fault.
And you know,
you didn't choose your neighborhood.
I didn't.
You didn't choose your school.
And you know, it also makes me wonder too with parents, and even listening to reading Kevin's story on Facebook, you know, it's naturally when your parents make more money, they want to live in the better neighborhoods. But unfortunately, those better neighborhoods, there's not a lot of diversity. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like, you know, your parents put you in these neighborhoods. Okay, we made it. We in these nice neighborhoods. Now it's a nice area. But then I don't think they truly understand the effect of not having enough diversity for your child.
And they can't. It's something you genuinely have to experience for yourself. And I think this is an era in history that will continue to see play out, and that they'll analyze and have studies on and things like that later on. But if you think about our parents, they grew up in black neighborhoods. Period.
Yeah. And they've done well.
They've done well.
Yes.
But we have been programmed to think that white means better. If I'm going to make it, if I'm going to be successful, it means living in this neighborhood. And this neighborhood is white. Mm-hmm. So I understand, especially when you talk about our parents, because of the era that they grew up in, and you talk about, you know, drugs and, you know, all this other kind of stuff that was going on. I get it, but they were so focused on survival that they forgot to provide a life. And there's such a big difference between the two. So it's like, yes, I'm safe and I'm clothed, and, you know, you're not worried about, you know, there being any kind of significant violence at the school or anything like that. But I have nobody that looks like me. I have nobody to bounce my ideas off of. Nobody at my school listens to the same music as me. We have no connections. I'm literally just a body. And yes, I'm learning, but then what education am I getting? I'm in an all-white school, learning from all-white teachers, from books that were written by white people. So it's like my history's not in there, my faith isn't in there. We gotta sit through reading Huckleberry Finn as a class, and every time that somebody says nigga, they looking at my direction. Yeah. And for what?
You know, that sparked something I had to discuss with my mom about a couple days ago. You know, I feel like, you know, we've been in these white schools, and the only history that I had was black people being slaves.
Yep.
Nothing that black people did.
And then Martin Luther King.
Yeah, and Martin Luther King. But outside of Martin Luther King, like, you really didn't know about any other black person that was doing very well for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I almost you know, even my dad was like, you didn't know a black person invented the stoplight? You know, I didn't know those things. So my dad was like, whoo, I've got to educate my girls because, you know, we went to Texas and he felt like we didn't understand who we were, where we came from. And I said, you know, honestly, I think that's why I gravitate towards you so much. And even my good friend, Dicey, who lives in DC, because when I'm in DC and I'm submerged with her friends and in that environment, it's so empowering to see black people doing very well. I'm like, Mom, and I'm in Texas. Your mom, you're the only person that I see that has done very well. It's like I only got one person. Like, I know there are other black people doing well, but it's something about being surrounded by them.
Yeah.
And my first time going to, was it homecoming? No, the Classic. Bayou Classic. So when I went and saw you for the Bayou Classic, and we went out to eat, I think you were in student government or whatever, we went out to eat, and y'all were all there. And I just saw sitting at the table, everybody there, y'all were dressed up. I don't know where y'all came from, but a lot of y'all were dressed up.
Yeah.
And just the way that y'all spoke, and just, it was just like, wow. Like, honestly, I was like, why did I not go to an HBCU? It was just so liberating to see very intelligent people and intelligent people who were close to my age. So it let me know that it wasn't so far out of reach, if that makes any sense. But I was just like, man, like, I feel like I don't know who I am.
I remember my very first day stepping onto Southern's campus, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. No idea whatsoever. I had heard about Southern because one of my good friends in high school, his dad was on the Houston Alumni Association. So he would always like pick me up and take me to the events and things like that. So that's how I got introduced. But I remember, so when you first drive on Southern's campus, there's one way in, there's one way out. The street it's a hump, okay? And they refer to it as such. So I remember driving over the hump the first time, and it was just blackness. And I was like, girl, you done did it now. You know what I'm saying? So
what made you want to go to an HBCU? Did you intentionally seek out one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I remember I was in 8th grade, and it was right before we moved from California to Texas, and I was telling my dad, and we were still on the fence about moving here. Okay. So I told him I wanted to go to a black high school, which either would have been Long Beach Poly or Compton High School. And he was like, no. He said, you walk your little white ass up in there and they will eat you alive.
Wow.
And that stuck with me for so long. And I told him, I said, but I can't stay where I am. I said, I feel like a science experiment. I feel like somebody put me in a plastic bag, closed it, and said, let's see if she can survive. And he looked at me like, what? Like he just...
They don't understand.
He didn't get it, but that's really how I felt. I felt like I was in the most unnatural environment, and it was just a game to see
people ask you ignorant questions.
Exactly.
It's like
you have to deal with the microaggressions and things that people, unless you've lived that life, you don't understand, of having all eyes, all attention on you all the time, to be in an environment where somebody can say Alicia and they're like, who? The black girl. Oh,
I don't like, it bugs me when people do that.
But something that simple narrows it down.
Yeah, to who you are. And being on Southern's campus, that was the first time in my entire life where identifying me as a black girl did not narrow it down. Everybody was black. That,
so you had to get more specific. I was like, oh baby, I need adjectives. You know what I'm saying? You really gonna have to do some work.
But then you can identify somebody else outside just of their skin color.
Yeah.
You know? Like, get to know who they are. Okay, you know, the one she's a dancer, she's you know, or has history at this, you know, time period. Like, something else besides just identifying somebody just based off the color.
Yeah. But being on that campus, I mean, the students were Black, the janitors were Black, the administration was Black, my professors were Black, the staff was Black, the lunch ladies were Black, everybody was Black. So it was just this vastness of everything. And there was, you know, you had your athletes, you had your intellectuals, you had your you know, your jocks, you had your woke clan over here, and it was like everybody was just doing their thing. I could wear whatever earrings I wanted, I could wear my hair however I wanted, and I wasn't viewed as being unkept or less than or uncivilized or whatever the case
or ethnic
or ethnic, you know what I'm saying, or urban. I was just me, and I really got to figure out who that was and how I wanted to express it and how I wanted to be perceived. And it was such a powerful experience, taking classes that were made for me. Taking an African American literature class for the first time blew my mind. I mean, the discussions that we were able to have, and so open and so freely, that would have never taken place at a predominantly white institution. It just would not have happened. I remember being in Southern, and Obama had won the presidency. And that moment for us, everybody came running out of our dorms. We have like a common area that we refer to as the circle. Everybody ran to the circle. The cars were out there, you know, playing music, and everybody was celebrating and hugging each other. And we made like trash can punch, and we were out there all night. And LSU is only 10, 15 minutes away from Southern. And the Black students from Southern, or from LSU, came down to Southern so they could celebrate freely.
Speaking to that, because I feel like you had a moment of celebration, it's a celebratory moment for you. I went to an all-white college, and there was only 3% Black. And it was a different story. People were vandalized, like, so you can, on our dorm, you could decorate the outside of your door. So a lot of us were excited. We had stuff with Obama all on our doors. Our doors being vandalized. It was a different experience. It was like, yet again, can we just have a moment? Like, y'all had all these white presidents. Like, we didn't see us tear things down when George, you know, we didn't do it. But it's yet when we have our moment to just be thankful and be excited, you want to disrupt that.
They were hanging nooses
on
LSU's campus. And they made that environment so uncomfortable for those students that they drove down the street and they celebrated with us. So you could definitely feel the tension after that, especially being in Louisiana.
You know, so recently I feel like I have been in this battle of identifying how I want to show up in the workplace, corporate America. And I say that because, so my first job out of college, I'm not going to name the place where I worked, but I worked for a recruiting company. And I remember when I decided to leave and move on to another company, because there was some conflict, I'm not gonna lie, there was some conflict with my first job. And one of the Asian men, as I'm leaving, he says to me, he says, look, I don't want you to change who you are, but I just want you to know that you're a strong Black woman, and sometimes it doesn't fit in these type of environments. And because I almost felt like I was ganged up against. Like, I tried to tell the director about my white boss. There were some issues there, and it was almost like it was all turned back on me, like I was the issue. And I remember just like sobbing and trying to figure out what my next move was gonna be. And I think from there on is where I really try to like suppress my blackness. You don't argue, or not even, I'm not the most argumentative, but you don't disagree. Whatever happens, goes. You kind of just be that quiet, bubbly black girl, real friendly. You don't rock the boat. You don't say nothing. You don't call people out on their shit. Like you just exist.
Yeah.
Exist, put your head down and do your job, and do your job better than your white counterparts. And I feel like I've been doing that for so many years, and you know what I'm talking about. And I have been dismissed for opportunities that I know that it should have been mine. It's like I'm at this crossroads where I feel like I was being myself and I got punished for being myself. And then I tried to be somebody else and I'm still getting punished for being somebody else. It's like, Lord, like, I need some direction here. How can I show up and be my authentic self and still get what I deserve? And it reminded me of this book that my mom actually sent to me. It's called The Memo by Minda Harts. And she talks about being black in corporate America. Because of course you have your book, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. And it's crazy. In the book Memo, Minda Hart says, look, as black women, we've been leaning in. If we lean in anymore, we be on the damn table. We're gonna fall over and keep leaning in.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, you know, being a black woman in corporate America, I don't know who to go to for mentorship. Because there aren't a lot of black people higher up. And I'm struggling to try to get the direction and get feedback on how I should handle certain things in the workplace. And I'm so thankful that I came across this book because it's literally caused me to stop and pause and evaluate who I am and how to strategically do what I want to do in regards to my professional development, but surround myself with the right people in order to get more ahead. And then on top of that, in the book, she talks about her name. And, you know, we talked about my name. Where Minda's real name is Asminda. And she said that, you know, talks about how she's gone through her life of people not being able to pronounce her name. And so she decided just to go with the name Minda. And it reminded me of my name. So a lot of people don't know, my biological name is Natoria. And I feel like all my life I've gone by Tori because Tori was easier. And I remember in elementary school, or maybe it was intermediate school, where the teachers, and even college, where the teachers would either say "nah" and then just say Edwards, Miss Edwards. You know, it was like they wouldn't take the time to try to pronounce my name correctly. So when you're in a room and you're the only black person or one of the very few, and everybody's getting their first name called, and you get called by your last name, or there's a pause, it does something to you.
It does.
You know, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I just need to, like, again, let me suppress that blackness. Let me be able to fit in with my white environments, make it easy, make it smooth. And I came across a kind of like a little quote on Instagram, and it said, "Dear little black girl with the big name, correct them every single time." And I started to cry because my dad named me. My dad said, you know, why don't you ever go by Natoria? And I'm like, cause, you know, honestly, it sounds ghetto. It just sounds ghetto. And I don't want to appear to be ghetto. I'm already black. I'm already loud. I'm a little bit, you know, I'm very I'm outgoing. People may say I'm boisterous, but I feel like I'm outgoing. And I've already got some of these stereotypes that kind of follow me anyway, so I want to try to at least blend in with the white people as much as possible. And so I'm like, you know what? No. Because I set the tone for those other black people coming up under me.
And that is the thing. We come in and, you know, gentrification is a big hot topic right now. But we have been gentrifying more than our communities. We've been gentrifying our names. We've been gentrifying our hair. We've been doing all of these things in order to be more acceptable. Now, understand, I understand that in the beginning, it was very much out of necessity, and it was very much out of survival, because it meant getting the good job to be able to support your family and this, that, and the other. But it's like eventually somebody has to be the person to spark that catalyst that, hey, no, I can have braids at work, and believe it or not, it's not going to affect my work.
And you know what's so crazy? You said
it's not going to change who I am.
Do you remember that story about the boy in California where they weren't going to let him graduate unless he cut off his dreads?
Mm-hmm. Locks.
Yeah. Thank you for correcting me. I was like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. It's, you have to be like us or we're going to make you pay. And we do it every time because, unfortunately, sometimes it's easier to conform than it is to fight. I remember being in elementary school and getting dropped off and getting the talks of, don't start no shit.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be in there, causing trouble and this, that, and the other because you're black.
Yeah.
You can't do what your friends do. You can't act like your friends act because they gonna lock you up and your friends are gonna go home.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna happen to you, and then, they won't have these consequences. So it's instilled at a very early age that you can't be free. You can't express yourself how you want to express yourself. You can't do what you want to do because there will be consequences. So we take that into our adulthood. We take that gentrification mindset and we apply it to other aspects of our life. And it's unfortunate that it is that way, but it's something that's almost second nature to us at this point.
It's crazy that you said that because the more I started to research about it, because I feel like there are parts of me where I almost kind of had my own form of racism, but it's called, and I actually found this, what's her name? Let me find it. It's called internalized racism. So There is a lady named Donna K. Bivens, and she discussed internalized racism. So basically, it's minorities conforming to the whites' image, and philosophy about how black people are ghetto or black people are ignorant, we're not smart, and so essentially we basically conform to that. And so, okay, I can't talk slang because white people think that if you talk slang, you're ignorant. And so you tell yourself, hey, when I'm with my family and friends, don't loosen up because that's ignorant. So you kind of suppress who you really are to conform to white privilege and racism that's basically set by white people.
You lose the beauty in it. There's something so beautiful about being able to use your own way of expression and your own vernacular and word choice, or wear what you want to wear, or just anything, but you lose it. You lose it because you're so scared of being judged and this and that and the other.
And people don't realize it, but that's a form of what she explained in her it's like a 10-page, if y'all get a chance to read it, it's a 10-page article. But that's all what she talks about when she refers to it as internalized racism. It's just that.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I've done it.
I know I've done it. And I didn't know that it was a form of racism at all. But she's saying that is why we will never racism will never be fixed if we don't do that. If we don't stop ourselves from conforming to what white people think we should look like, or we should dress like, we should act like.
But I love where we are right now, and it's definitely still not perfect, and it's a crazy time, but women wearing their natural hair,
Oh, yeah.
You know, being more expressive with the things that we do and how we interact. I feel like nothing is more toxic so I had a friend, you know, it was actually you. You came to me and you asked me to give you advice. And no, it was not you. I lied. Back up. It was my other friend.
I call her a lot for advice though, y'all.
But he wasn't in a good place, and he was so overwhelmed he couldn't even begin to conceptualize becoming whole. And I said your goal and your focus rather, not your goal, can't be wholeness. It has to be one penny at a time. You'll get to the dollar, but you have to focus on one penny at a time. So I don't know that there was necessarily one revolutionary moment where I was just like, I'm black. But it was taking an African American lit class, being surrounded by other black people, learning, empowering stories, and that it didn't start with slavery, and learning the kings and the queens side of it, the inventor side of it, the music side of it, and really exploring those things. And it was just about self-love. Like, it sounds so cheesy, like it was on the back of the mahogany collection from a Hallmark card, but
no, you're right. Cause you know where I've been. I feel like this last 3 years have been a journey of just loving myself. Now I'm at a point where how can I put myself out on display and be comfortable with it? Because like I have really good friends who are African. One's from Sierra Leone and one's from Ghana. And if you ever meet somebody who is African, they are so proud of who they are. You can't tell them nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why I really have been wanting to, I've been talking about it, to go to Africa.
Yeah. We've
been wanting to go to Africa because I feel like the people who are grounded in their roots and they know their history, they are proud. Some proud people. You can't tell them nothing. They know how to adapt to their environments. Now, adapt does not mean change who they are. Yeah. But just find ways to, stay true to who they are, but be relatable with other people. And I think that's kind of where I am trying to figure out right now.
Everything is about what you eat. And I'm not just talking about food. What you consume, the music, the media, you feel this way. I felt that way, of that displacement and the insecurity and the things like that, because I was digesting the lies that I had been told. So you're a product. You are what you eat. Period. So if you consume lies, you're going to exhibit those behaviors. If I
preach, Reverend,
if I fed you expired food, your body would let you know.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's just changing your intake and being intentional, just as intentional as if you were trying to lose weight or eat clean or, whatever the case may be, that what you're taking in is truthful, it's factual, it's empowering, it's helpful.
And even the amount that you take in, because I think growing up, my sister can attest this, my mom would, and maybe my grandmother would always say that we are beautiful. Oh, you're so beautiful. Your great grandma, you're so beautiful. And I felt that at home, but when I went out into the world and went to school, look, guys didn't approach me. Guys approached the light-skinned girl with the blue eyes, or the biracial girl with the curly, I didn't feel that beauty when I stepped out into the world. And I think as a young child, when you're still trying to develop, you need that. You need that.
And all you have is a handful of representation sprinkled here and there. You have Naomi Campbell, you've got Susie Carmichael, and Brandy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we had. Yeah. That's what we had.
No, that is so true. Oh my gosh. This is good. This is really good. See, me and Alicia, when this camera turns off, we have the most in-depth conversations. And I love it because in many ways, I think you and I are complete opposites. There's times where I would just call her, you know, like I think I call when the whole Snoop Dogg made the comment to Gail about Kobe. And, you know, I knew where she was going to go, but I'm like, I'm going to call Alicia. Because I was like, he's out of line. You know, like, you don't ever talk to a woman like that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's always good to have a friend who is different than you when it comes to their thought process, because it challenges the way that you think. I may disagree with you, but I love that you help broaden my perspective. Mm-hmm. So now I got another perspective, completely different than mine. I can still disagree, but at least I got something else to dissect and then make sure that my decision is the right one.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So yeah, this has been a good episode. I know we've been here for like quite some time. So we're going to wrap this up, but is there anything that you want to leave with anybody before we close this out today?
I feel like for me, it's so important to address that young black girl, that young black boy that may feel like a science experiment, and you feel like nobody gets it and no one understands you, and they don't. And that's okay. And someone's lack of ability to see your value does not change it at all. Yeah. Do your research. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. Mm-hmm. Know for yourself, but it's gonna take work. It's gonna take effort. And it's gonna take some diligence, but I love my journey, and I feel like I'm so well-rounded.
Yeah, I agree.
And even in my pain, I've been able to use it in ways I never thought I would have been able to. I'm so proud, more now than ever, to be a black woman in a world that very vocally is not in favor of my very existence. But I'm gonna be the best, blackest, boldest, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just, and once you have that peace and that assurance, no one can take it from you. Yeah. No one can take it from you. And what I noticed is I was saying I was a proud black woman, but I was still conforming. I was still this. I was still whatever. Yeah. And the way that people treated me, they treated me like
what they see.
Well, they treated me like I was an imposter. And I was. Because I wasn't being genuine to myself. But when I started walking in genuine authenticity, people received me differently. And it wasn't always positive. I feel like people also chose clearer sides and were either for or against.
Right.
But
they have that right. You know, you can choose. I feel like you can make your judgment about me after you've seen who I really am.
Exactly. But there's so much beauty in being able to stand firm on that. Yeah. That if you don't like me, that's cool, because this is exactly who I am. Mm-hmm. To whereas otherwise, when you're not being yourself and people are like, I don't like you, you're like, wait.
Yeah.
Well, I can
switch it up. I can do this. Let me change it up. Yeah.
So that would be my thing. It's rough. It's not going to be easy. And
I want to jump into, because I feel like, you know, when you have these young black children, you mentioned community. Mm-hmm. And I think I had a mini community with sports, but I feel like you need to have your kids in more black communities outside of sports.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like it just goes back to that stereotype where black people only are really good at sports. Mm-hmm. We really only excel in that field. And I think for me, that's why as an adult, I'm yearning to see other black people who are doing well outside of the entertainment and sporting industry. And I think that's why I've literally been holding on to that book, The Memo, Because I'm like, I need some direction because I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it. What happens after that little girl grows up? You know? So yeah, you guys, I want to say thank you to Alicia. Yay! For taking the time to kind of join me for this hour of just laying it all out on the line.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope for whoever's watching, listening, if you are struggling with self-identity as a Black or even a minority person, take the feedback that she gave you. I think we have to be conscious about what we're feeding ourselves. And the more that you feed yourself positivity about who you are, about your culture, I think that you will find who you are and feel comfortable with who you are and be brave enough to stand in who you are authentically. So that concludes the episode of Through Our Lenses. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Bye.
I'm rooting for everybody Black.
Oh yeah. Hey, that